Hey, what is going on? This is a tutorial on how to make hybrids in Gran Turismo 4. This can be done on PC SX2 as I will show here, but it can also be done on real PS2 hardware if desired, because the way we're doing it is we're just using a save editor. This is a fairly new thing that has come out recently, so I'll be showing you that today. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our PCSX2 and boot up our Gran Turismo 4. Now, for this I'm going to be using the online public beta, but the original Gran Turismo 4 will work just fine as well. The save editor supports a lot of different versions of Gran Turismo 4, different regions and such, so we'll go ahead and just load this up real quick. And let's get started. Okay, so first off, the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out what car we want to hybrid, and then figure out what car we're taking the performance data from. So let's just take just anything random here. Let's just take this NSX Type R. Okay, let's say that we're going to hybrid this NSX Type R right here. Okay, now let's say that we want to swap in a different engine and swap in other performance data from another car. So let's go maybe swap it with, I don't know, doesn't really matter. I'm trying to find something that's somewhat interesting here. Let's swap it with let's do this. Let's swap it with something that has a lot of horsepower. So yes, let's go with the good old, I guess I don't have an R92CP in here for some reason, but whatever. We'll use, here's a good one. Let's actually use this, mainly because of the transmission that's actually in this car. It has a very good transmission, so. Well, first, this is going to be the car that we're going to take the performance data from and swap it into the NSX. Now, before we do that, we do need to learn a little bit about the car, so that we can hybrid it correctly and avoid any glitchy engine audio, which does happen if you don't do this correctly. So the first thing we want to make sure we take a look at is the exhaust upgrade. This is using a racing exhaust. So what that means is for our NSX Type R hybrid, we will need to make sure that we buy the racing upgrade for the exhaust. I think that's really the only thing we have to worry about is the exhaust. So there's nothing in here. I don't think there's anything in the turbo, so no turbo upgrades, just a racing exhaust. So as long as we have that exhaust upgrade taken care of, then we'll be good. So now let's go to our NSX Type R, get in, okay, and let's go ahead and buy that racing exhaust upgrade real quick before we start hybriding. Okay, and auto saves, but I just want to go ahead and just save. Okay, now at this point what we want to do is we actually want to shut down PCSX2. We are now done with this part, and what we now want to do is open up the save editor. The link is in the description, so check that out. So we'll go ahead and run the save editor, and we can open it. And this is actually something I forgot to mention earlier, is that you, at least for PCSX2 users, you will need to convert your virtual memory card that PCSX2 uses, and convert it into a folder format. So I will show you that real quick before we continue. Just go to memory cards, and you can see here, this is already the converted folder memory card. So this is the original one that it's derived from. So this one's just not plugged in. So all you do, as you can see here, that's plugged in. So I believe what you have to do first is, actually I don't know what's going on with this one, but anyway, you just have to take one of the memory cards that's already plugged in, and you should be able to just hit this convert button right here, click that, and the only option you get is to change it to a folder, and it will make a completely different .ps2 file. So it's not going to affect the memory card that you already had before, but go ahead and convert that, and then make sure to select the converted folder one as, you know, your active port one in your memory card. So anyway, back to the save editor, we're going to load it, and for this particular Gran Turismo 4 that I'm using, this is the save file name is this. So we just hit select folder, and it's going to load our save. And the save editor does give you some options for modifying your money and some other, you know, various things. And there's also some features that haven't been implemented yet, as you can see here, but we're not worried about that. We're just worried about the hybrid stuff. So we can edit the car, and now we have full access to the NSX Type R that we have currently. This is the current car that we're in, so to speak, in the game. This is the one that we have on. So and you can also affect each sheet if you want, but typically we just use sheet 1. So we do have some options here. Now you can see here these car parts, this section right here, all these numbers that you've seen here are all ID numbers. These are not values, these are ID numbers, so it's very important that you understand that. Now, what are we supposed to do? There's two ways of doing it. The first way is sort of the slow way, and it might take a little while longer. Is what you would do is actually equip the GTR or whatever car that you want to swap the parts from first. Open up the save editor, and then take a look at the values here. Copy or write down or memorize what you want to remember, and then go back in the game, swap out to the car that you want to use, then come back into the save editor, and then copy and paste the values that you got from the first car. So, but that's sort of a slow way, and we don't need to do this. So what I have here, this is the PCSX2 Hybrid Creator, and we don't actually need to use this program, but we do want to use all of these files right here. These are sheets. These are lists of all the cars and all the upgrades and all the ID numbers that we need to look at. So we'll go ahead and swap the engine from the GTR. So we'll just open up engine1.txt. I don't know if there's a difference between these two engine files here, but engine1.txt seems to have everything. So we'll just search, let's go Nissan, and then we can just kind of scroll down and find it, which this was it right here, the LM race car. Okay, now this code right here, this 059D, this is what you want. Okay, so we're going to copy this, we're going to go into calculator and make sure that it is in programmer mode, and then we're going to select hex and go ahead and paste it. And now it'll tell me what the ID number is, because this ID number right here is in hexadecimal format, and the save editor here uses decimal format, so we have to convert that. So 1437 is going to be our engine ID, so we're going to change that to 1437. Okay, now we can't just swap the engine ID and be done with it, because we need to make sure that we also swap any turbo or NA tune upgrade that the GTR in this case has. So we'll need to check that. Now I didn't see any turbo upgrades or anything on the car when we looked at it before, so that might actually be all we need to do, but let's double check. Let's go to turbos, because I would suspect that this car does have a turbo, but it may just use the default turbo ID. So let's go down and find it. Nissan GTR Concept LM race car. So the stock, this is it right here. This is what we had before. Now we could apply like the stage 3 or stage 4 upgrade. However, I'm not going to do that for this. We're just going to copy this ID and we're going to see what that says. So that's going to say 2343. So this does use its own unique ID. Sometimes they just use the same ID number for cars that don't use a turbo, or just the stock turbo is the same ID number across most cars in the game. But in this case, it uses a unique ID, 2343. So we're going to do 2343. And then at that point, that should be all that we need to do to swap the engine. So that's all we got to do there. Now there are some other options, some other fun things we can do in here. We can modify the gear ratios of the car. We can modify the suspension. We can make the camber super negative and make it stanced if we want to. We can slam it to the ground with we can lower the ride height all the way. We can mess with all the suspension settings and do crazy wacky things with that. You've got LSD settings. You've got your turbo settings, which we might need to actually figure out what these are, because the GTR, I'm assuming, does have turbo settings, and I did not remember to copy those down. Well, because I couldn't, because we didn't look at the GTR's settings in here just yet. So not a big deal. It won't affect the audio, but it might affect the performance of the car a little bit. But the only other thing we want to look at is the other tab right here. It's just a simple weight and power multiplier. I believe this would have been used for prize cars. This would have had, you know, maybe a 105 or 103% multiplier or something, or, you know, 3% boost. But what we'll do is we'll crank it as far as it'll go, which is 255. So that's going to be a 255% multiplier on the engine power. So it's going to make 2.5 times more power, and we'll set this to like 90% weight, so that's a little bit lighter. And then yeah, that's pretty much it. We could mess with the gear ratios if we wanted to, but for now we'll just leave it. So we can just hit X on here and then go to the save editor and hit save, and then select folder. Okay, we've now saved our game inside PCSX2. So now we're going to boot it up again and see what we got. I think I can make this go faster. Here we go. Alright, here's our NSX Type R. We can go to Garage. And now you can see this has 1600 horsepower, so we did actually do something correctly. So yes, we can hit start on the controller as well, and that'll take us straight to the tuning menu. You don't have to go into a race. But you can see it's very important that we bought the racing exhaust beforehand. Otherwise, if we booted this up without doing the racing exhaust, then this car would have some ridiculous horsepower number and have glitchy audio. So make sure you have the racing exhaust on for this. But other than that, we've done it. We have indeed done the hybriding conversion. We've now swapped the GTR engine into the NSX Type R. So let's take it for a quick drive, get a feel for it, and we'll also come back and do a couple more things with the car. We can swap the transmission and change the gear ratios and stuff. And as you can also hear, the engine audio has been changed to the GTR engine audio as it should. And it also has a lot of power, so it's practically impossible to control. So yes, we have successfully swapped engines on this NSX. Okay. Now, one thing I would like to do before we continue is to actually go back on the GTR, and we are going to check out its stats on the save editor. So let's shut it down once again, reload. Okay, here it is again, and you can see we got the GTR on, and you can see these turbo settings. This is what the GTR uses. So what I like to do is, if I'm doing this, I like to take snipping tool and just copy this whole sheet right here, and then now we can reference this when we go back to the NSX. So now let's go back on PCSX2 once again, go back to our NSX and re-equip it, and then we can make some more changes to the NSX. Okay, let's come out of here, reload it once again. All right, so now we got back on the type bar, and let's pull up our sheet here. And what we can do is just look, and first off, I will change the turbo settings here to match what the GTR is. 1250 75. Okay. All right, now I also would like to change the gearbox, or this save editor calls it gear, so we can just directly copy from this GTR sheet directly into here, and it'll work perfectly. So we'll change it to 3590. And then the clutch, I don't think you have to change it, but we'll just make it 3257. Let's see, what else do we have? The muffler, we don't really need to change the muffler. We can if we want, but the muffler is not important for the engine audio to function, as long as it's the racing upgrade, or it matches the same upgrade as the original car. So so we can do a couple things. I think that's really all I wanted to do, was change the gearbox. We can also change the brakes. I don't know that the brakes are better. They probably are, since it's a race car, so I'll change the brakes. The brake controller, I probably need to do that too. The drivetrain, we can also change the drivetrain. This is a fun one to do, is you can take it from, you know, whatever original drivetrain, whether it's front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, mid rear, all wheel drive. You can change it to a drivetrain from a car that's of a different, you know, configuration. So you could take a front wheel drive car and make it rear wheel drive, etc., etc. So we'll change the drivetrain as well. We'll do 1633. I don't know that it's technically different. I guess it is. I think the GTR is front engine rear wheel drive, so that'll do something. I think that's pretty much all I'd like to do. You can also see that this GTR has 7 gears. So because we changed the gearbox, we now need to make sure that we configure a 7th gear here. So we can just put whatever we want. We can either copy the values from the GTR or just make our own. I'm just going to make our own. We'll just put a 600 there. That's going to be a 0.6 to 1 ratio for the gear. It actually has an 8th and 9th value here. I don't know what these are for. I'll just copy them down, just so that I don't mess anything up. If I could see it, Jesus. 30320, okay. And the 9th is 137. I don't know what these values do, or if they do anything at all. I don't know. But anyway, that's pretty much all I'm gonna do. This is all that you can do here, which is, well, everything. You can pretty much do everything that you could think of. So we'll save that and boot it once again for our final creation here. Alright, here's our NSX. It still has 1600 horsepower. We're only going to really be able to see changes when we actually go race it, so let's go race it. So we should have 7 gears. It should shift it very quickly as well. Let's change the limiter. So it has a lot of power, so it likes the wheel spin. Yeah, it says if you can notice, the gearbox has been changed because the shifting speed is much improved. And we have 7 gears. Fantastic. So we now have this super powerful NSX Type R that unfortunately doesn't brake very well, but I think the tires that are on it are really crappy, so can you blame it? But yeah, we've now created our own hybrid NSX Type R with GTR internals. So, yep, that is how you hybrid your cars in Gran Turismo 4 in 2023. Thanks for watching.